Hi, I'm Darren. I'm with Crutchfield. I'm here to talk to you today about the iDatalink Maestro program and help you learn a little bit more about the interface and hopefully give you some pointers and tips to help with the installation. One of the first things that you're going to need to be aware of is that you must flash the Maestro product with a PC or Mac. That's one thing that a lot of customers may not realize once they get the Maestro interface. But be ready for that. Download WebLink Desktop from the iDatalink Maestro website, so you'll be ready to flash the product. Also, if you have an iDatalink Ready radio, which most customers will probably have, you're going to also need the serial number from the radio as you're flashing the product. So that is one thing that you want to make sure that you have handy, either from the manufacturer's box or directly from the chassis of the radio itself. So after you've flashed your interface, there are going to be some wires that you need to connect from the Maestro harness to your radio harness. So you're going to want to do this before you get to the car. You don't want to be stuck in the vehicle trying to splice wires. Do this at your kitchen table or in your garage on your workbench. You're going to have several connections to make here. Don't get overwhelmed. Most of these connections are color-coded, so just keep that in mind. If there's a wire that you have a question about, refer back to your radio's owner's manual and also your install guide that you've downloaded after you flash the Maestro product. So in regards to making the connections, you've got a few options. One, you can purchase the radio harness service from Crutchfield. We'll make these connections for you. So when you receive the product, you already have a complete wiring harness ready to connect to your radio and your vehicle. As I discussed before though, there still may be some last mile connections that you need to make directly into the car. In regards to making the connections, you do have options. You can crimp, solder, use some posi connectors, but you need some form of a good connection. We just don't want you to twist and tape these connections because there's a good chance that it's going to fall apart behind the dash. Also, one important thing to note is when you have an iDatalink Ready radio, there's going to be a 4-pin iDatalink cable that's going to connect between the Maestro and the radio itself. And what that does is that facilitates direct communication from the radio to the interface and then directly to your vehicle. Once you flash the interface, there may be some connectors on your vehicle-specific harness that you need to pre-configure before you connect it to your car. One big one that stands out is on the Chrysler applications. There's some intermediate connectors here that must be configured. One of them is the CAN connector. It has red and black 2-pin connectors on it. If this is not configured right, the interface simply can't communicate with the proper CAN bus system in the vehicle. There's also some extra connectors here that are green and white that have your speaker wires on them. And what they do is they allow the Maestro to work in certain factory amplified applications. So in some of these factory amplified applications, you actually have to disconnect these and reverse the front and rear speaker signals. Maestro conveniently gives us connectors to do that instead of having to switch around the wiring itself. If you're using an iDatalink Ready radio, you're going to also, in most cases, have an OBD-II connection that you're going to need to run to your OBD port under the driver's side dash, usually either near the kick panel area or directly up under where your feet would be when you're driving. One thing to be aware of, in addition to the connectors on the Chryslers and some of the other harnesses as well, Toyota, for example, has multiple backup camera connectors. So you're going to have several different individual plugs to pick from. Once again, refer to the install guide. The installation guide will show you specifically which connectors to connect to the harness so that it'll plug directly into your vehicle. Also in Ford applications, one thing that you'll need to keep in mind is that if you have factory sync, there's going to be one extra wire that you'll need to splice into the vehicle. It's a pink-red wire. It's loose on the harness. And once again, it's going to tell you exactly where that wire needs to be connected in your installation guide. One other thing to keep in mind is on GM applications, such as the ones that use this GM5 harness here. Those are going to have multiple options for your speaker connections. Once again, refer to your install guide. It will vary based on the vehicle that you're installing it in and whether it has a factory amplifier or not. If you've purchased a Maestro SW, it's a little different than the RR interfaces in that this is simply a steering wheel control interface. This doesn't offer any of the other advanced features. It simply retains your steering wheel controls. One important thing to note is that after you flash the Maestro SW, you will be making connections directly to the vehicle with this interface. So that is one thing you will need to be prepared for. You will have to commonly connect about 2 to 3 wires into the vehicle. There are a few connections that you can make with your radio harness on the bench. You can go ahead and connect the red and black power wires from the Maestro interface in with your radio harness when you're making connections to your vehicle specific harness. Then that way when you get to the vehicle, you'll only have these extra steering wheel wires to actually connect. And as I said, commonly, it could be 1 wire, could be 2, could be 3. It's usually no more than that. Hopefully this video was able to help you and give you some important information that may assist you with the installation of your Maestro product. Just remember, refer to your downloaded install guide after you flash the product. That install guide will talk about your connections and give you some specific steps that are important and may help you along the way. Also remember though, we do have lifetime tech support along with your purchase, so feel free to reach out. We can also assist you with the installation as well.